This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
This ought to be a fun class. Really. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Yeah, here we go. And your dial is set correctly to USAPrepares.com. We're broadcasting live high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains, Studio A, and currently we're broadcasting on AM, FM, Utah, and Missouri. We've got satellite downlinks. We've got the internet. We've got smartphones. And on Monday, the great state of Tennessee joins the USAPrepares.com family. I'm excited. I really am. I learned that yesterday. Alex Jones, producer, called me and said, we're going to Tennessee. So I am just delighted to have Tennessee be part of the USAPrepares.com family. And we'll talk more about Tennessee on Monday. So if you'd like to share this broadcast with your friends and family, you can go to USAPrepares.com. It'll take you to a link that'll let you download the podcast for free. Converging threats are confronted daily by your instructors. I'm Vincent Finelli. Alex is producing the broadcast at GCN in Minnesota. And today, two instructors join us in the classroom. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us, and Nick Testaccio. And Nick is, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, the original Fox Mulder of the X-Files, Navy physicist, lead physicist for the U.S. Pentagon. Well, Nick Testaccio spent 30 years as a market analyst, specializing in agriculture and metals. He was a trader, a broker, a member of an affiliate American Stock Exchange where he traded bonds. He's a member of the New York Cotton Exchange and the New York Mercantile Exchange, where he traded metals and oil. And he was the director of quality assurance at the New York Mercantile Exchange, which is now part of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. So Nick has a great background. He is not a lightweight. He's a senior USAPrepares.com instructor. And it's interesting, if you look at what happened, Nick was a student who listened to the broadcast and rose to become an instructor. He decided that he was going to share his experiences and his training and his education with us right here at USAPrepares.com. So he has a really neat idea that he wants to share with us. Welcome, Nick Testaccio.
Good morning, Vincent. How are you this morning?
I'm great. It's great to hear you. And Richard Allen Miller, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning, Rick.
It's a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys. Why don't we start off with Nick? You had called me with a really neat idea. You have a relationship with someone, a family member, I believe, who works with autistic children.
That's correct.
Let's talk about what happens when we inject these young people with immunizations. Autism is out of control. It's off the charts. We are producing more autistic children than ever before. And many of us believe that we're doing it to ourselves, and then we warehouse these young people, and then we kick them out. Let's talk about what really happens with autism, and the person who's autistic, and then let's get into your idea where Richard Allen Miller can chime in because he's an expert in some of those areas.
Sure. Well, I have a little bit of experience through the family with some some issues going back years ago. But more recently, my cousin Trish teaches autistic children in the New York City school system. It's a daunting task. I've spoken to her on a few occasions about it, and she talks about the children. They're difficult to deal with. For instance, she has kids that are 14, 15 years old, can't put more than 2 words together. Their life as it is now is not going to be productive, and they're going to be put in. They're going to be labeled. They're going to be put in a system. However, there are people out there who are willing to take these children on. There are small private businesses who are glad to do it because there's a certain aspect to them, and Rick could speak more to this because he's very knowledgeable about the fact. They can be very regimented. So if you take a child with autism and you tell them, okay, you're going to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do the other thing, you can guarantee that that child will respond positively if you put him in an environment where he's safe and comfortable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I may be jumping the gun a little bit here, but I got the idea from listening to the show about Dr. Miller's productive use of children in the school systems and using this labor force to produce agricultural products. So I said, well, why can't we use children who have been sort of put to the side that we've created by some of the things we've done? We've poisoned our land. We've poisoned our water. We forced them to take vaccinations, and who knows if vaccinations are really the cause of this, although it seems to be. So why not take these children and put them into an environment where they might flourish? I know as a child myself, my grandpa Russo, he had a big yard in Brooklyn, was rather a large piece of land, and he grew fruits, vegetables. He had fruit trees, vines, tomatoes that were to die for, and a number of other plants that my grandmother used to can, and we'd eat from that. I got to eat my summer breakfast by going out and picking strawberries and blackberries and peaches off the tree, and to me that was a wonderful experience. So I thought that this might be a way to reach through to these children. But Rick tells me that he, and I'd like him to speak about this now, that being autistic may not be that much of a deterrent to having a great life.
Yeah, I could add a comment. I would be remiss if I did not mention Temple Grandin and what she has accomplished with her limitations. I wouldn't say that she's limited. There's an excellent movie called Temple Grandin that, highlights her life. Matt Stein was at a recent, last year he was at a conference with Mother Earth News, and Temple Grandin was sitting right next to him, and let me tell you, this woman is not handicapped in any manner at all, while she is quite different than other people. So am I. And I remember as a boy. By the way, your life growing up sounds wonderful to have that kind of an environment in the middle of a jungle. That's what they used to call it. The blackboard jungle. There, it is a credit to how you have become what you are today because of that, and that is really the message today, is that we try to classify everybody into being thin, having nice long blonde hair, and have these templates of what is good and and what is not good in our society. And I would say we need a paradigm shift in taking a look at what we would call normally handicapped or limited children, that were, let's say, mentally challenged. In fact, autism is not about that at all. In fact, in some venues, could be seen as a gift. Today, like in Grants Pass, Oregon, Spark is a small, little tiny organization here locally that has a bunch of autistic children running a greenhouse, and they do all the bedding plants for the city, and basically are doing a better job than master gardeners. And so what we are now doing is using master gardeners, again, like facilitators, where autistic children and or adults, and we have a lot of adults involved here now in this, are participating in areas where they excel. And when they do, the entire community benefits, rather than it being a lockdown hazard with our homeless and other things that are happening.
It's really interesting that you're saying this, because Temple Grandin was born in 1947. She earned a doctorate of animal science. She's a professor at Colorado State University. And Time Magazine has her listed as one of America's top 100 heroes.
There you go. That's autism in its finest hour. Mm-hmm. Now, that's, it's a beautiful mind. I was considered early on to have some kind of aberration. And the first thing they wanted to do with me in third grade, I didn't read English. By fourth grade, it wasn't until fourth grade that I actually was reading English. And I had read Palau and Tagalog and Mandarin 1, but I didn't read English until fourth grade. And they wanted to put me on lithium. My mother absolutely would not do that. So they tried to humiliate my mother and I by making me get up out of class in the middle on Wednesdays to go see a special counselor. What happened next, the counselor said I was gifted.
Well, maybe I'll share a story with you about me in third grade. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, Nick Testaccio. This is USAPrepares.com. There is a future for autism, and it may be brighter than we might have thought 20 minutes ago. We'll be right back. Nick Testaccio, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, and I are talking about autism, and it may be a bright spot in our future. Rick and Nick, when I was in third and fourth grade, as you were discussing it, it brought back a lot of memories. I was dyslexic. I could not read worth a darn. The words would jump around on the page. And reading aloud in those reading circles back in those days was a humiliating experience. It really was. It was... everyone else could read, but I couldn't. Those words would just jump around on the page, and I didn't even want to go to school. It was so humiliating, and so I can identify with what that's like. Somehow I outgrew it, and I learned how to read. I read a lot, and it's interesting because that's pretty much all I do now. I mean, if I'm not farming, I'm not broadcasting, I'm reading. And but it was really difficult, and we used blue pieces of paper and pink pieces of paper to underline the words in the book, so they kind of stand still a little bit. But it's something that I had to work on and work on and work on for years to overcome. So I can kind of understand what these experiences are like for some of these children. So, Nick, what's the plan? What do you see?
Well, in listening to Dr. Miller, it's mulling through my mind, but how this could be expanded for myself to be involved. So you and I had spoken before I was looking to move out of the area I'm in, maybe get myself a little farm and just go there and live, to be away from the clutter of the city. And all of a sudden popped into my mind that what if I built a farm where we could bring these autistic children, have them stay for a day, a couple of days, 3, 4, 5 days. I don't know how that would work out right now. I'm sure that some of them would do well. And have them live there for a few days, teach them the basics of farming, give them something to do every day, a regimen to do, so that they could produce something and watch what they're doing to grow. Of course, the whole plan in my head, sort of popped in. So I'm just working it out right now. But the concept of a farm where they could go, and even their parents could come and see them working in the fields and see how productive they can be, and how it might affect their not only their well-being, but their parents' ability to work with these children and see that they're going to have a good life. Now, the reason I phrase it like that is because, as Rick has said, we label everybody. So you put these kids in a school environment, and they're labeled right away. And parents who, are maybe not that aware of their potential see them as handicapped children. And I want to take some of that away, and I want the parents to see this as a family enterprise.
That's an excellent and laudable path, and I would do anything I can to help you make that happen. I believe that the parents may be as culturally damaged as the children, and it might be a camp for both of them to have a different paradigm shift of their relationship to each other. Children have an innate desire to care for immediately and take care of parents when they're in trouble. And pretty much like a parent would for the child actually has a similar kind of thing. And really, I personally think that people over 5 years old are mentally damaged, and that, with their food choices and their belief systems and their concepts of what is right, normal. So that's my first concern. Maybe the school would be both
Dr. Richard Allen Miller, Nick Testaccio. We're talking about autism. I'm Vin Finelli. Interesting relationship with Temple Grandin. I'll tell you what that is when we come back in just a minute. Class, we're talking about autism. And Dr. Richard Allen Miller mentioned Temple Grandin, and she was autistic, diagnosed at the age of 3 in 1950. And she was diagnosed as being brain damaged. But she had supportive mentors. And as a result, she was able to earn her doctorate of animal science, and she is a professor at Colorado State University. She graduated from a very small college in Rindge, New Hampshire, Franklin Pierce College. Now, Franklin Pierce College is in the middle of nowhere. It's almost like where the farm is that I live on in Missouri. And I have been to Franklin Pierce College. It literally started out as a farm. I'm not kidding. And as I listened to Nick Testaccio talking about this, I see in my life, I have been there. I probably spent some time visiting the college when Temple Grandin was there, literally. And I look at this and I say, wow, Here's a great example of how we can help people learn and become the best they can be, not as slave labor, but as productive members of society, and I think they would love it. Nick, the only thought I have where I differ with your initial timetable is 3 to 4 or 5 days. I'm thinking months, maybe even years, where they live and work and learn on the farm, and it is the next step is to transform the farm into a university, just as Franklin Pierce College was transformed into Franklin Pierce University.
Well, that's really forward thinking. I'm still in the planning stage, but that's actually a terrific idea. My main motivation at this point was to get these kids into this type of an environment and see how it would work out. Of course, I mean, if it's a roaring success, your idea would be absolutely fabulous. But that obviously takes a lot of work. But, talking about some of the underlying reasons why this needs to be done, because Dr. Miller has stated on a number of occasions, it's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when we're going to experience a tremendous upheaval in our society. I remember back in the late 50s, early 60s, we could produce enough food in this country to feed the world 5 times over. That's when the world population was somewhere around 3.5 billion people, and even today with a population of 7 billion people, that's plenty of food. We don't even produce enough food. Forget about good food. We don't even produce enough food today to feed ourselves. We have sick herds of cattle, pigs, and our farm production is very low, considering the fact that we've gone into a technological age where the farmer should be able to use every inch of his soil to produce something. A big problem with that is that our soil no longer produces the nutrients it does. So, getting back to your point, I saw a more pressing need right now to start what was going on, what I had in my mind of bringing children out so that they might be prepared and their families might be prepared for some upheaval in their lives. And also as this popped into my mind a few days ago as a place where they could seek shelter if things do get as bad as there is a potential for.
Children are actually, in some ways, more aware and intelligent than an adult, because an adult has developed and found a mindset of comfort. That's inside the box kind of thing. Whereas a child is more like an indigenous native, open to the environment and what it has to offer and what it might mean and how to integrate that for its own direction and pleasure. They're more indigenous-oriented. That is essentially bred out of them in our current forms of education. And really, and I'm speaking now as an individual that was, in some ways, very blessed by God when I was a child, and yet had to fight my way through it. I did not have, once they determined I was gifted, then they wanted to advance me. Imagine how I might have become without the level of social awareness, which I think I'm extremely inept. Basically, I try to be a sweet old man, but truthfully, I don't have a clue of what's going on with women. The emotional concepts are semi-lost in me because I hang out in a different part of my brain more than I probably should. gifts are your niche in the scheme of things. That's what a gift is to recognize a dysfunction and somehow containerize it in a manner, like water, putting it in a glass so that you can drink it, so that you can use it as a tool. That's what my current writings are about. And agriculture, our relationship to the earth, has to do with Gaia and our relationship to self and the voice of the planet and how we get nurtured and sustained from it. And it's not about food. It is a relationship with yourself and your environment. And that is why I think a demonstration farm, we, as kids, when I was a little kid, in 3rd grade and 4th grade, they had camp. And I went to Camp Waskowitz, where I learned about a Douglas fir tree and how the Douglas fir isn't a true fir, but it has a cone like this, and it leader tips that way, blah, 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 like different than a hemlock. And I remember all of that from camp. And if we were to offer a child something different than urban neighborhood school systems as a secondary, opening the door and giving them a peek, that would be a good place for educational reform to begin. And autism is just the tip of that iceberg.
So what you're saying is that Finney's idea of a longer-term project is an excellent idea.
Yes, and one where everybody gets to participate, including the parents, because basically it will be our children that save this earth and take care of us. We're already gone in that sense of it.
Nick, here's what I'm hearing as I'm listening to this this design unfold. By the way, the number one trending topic, the number one discussion point on TalkStream Live right now is titled Autism University. Autism University. Obviously, there's some interest in this. Nick, as I listen to this design unfold, what I'm hearing is an answer to parents' prayers. What I mean by that, what is the hope that a parent has for an autistic child right now? A life of caring for that young person, and the parents are getting older and the child is getting older. What happens if the parents predecease the child? Then what happens? But when you combine this with what happened in Rindge, New Hampshire at Franklin Pierce College, ultimately Franklin Pierce University, and you see what happened with Temple Grandin, if you put all that together and you say, there really is a long-term solution, we could have a 4-year university, a 4-year college for specializing in autism and helping these people become exactly what Temple Grandin became, a doctor of animal science, farming. And if you look at Nick, you really hit the nail right on the head with this. I'm not kidding, because if you look at young people, they love animals. They love puppies. They love dogs. They love cats. They love horses and sheep and goats. And now you welcome them with the animals on the farm with a long-term solution for their education. And it doesn't have to be college. It could start at in the elementary grades, go through high school, and continue through college to the advanced degrees.
Here's the problem with one thought there. Imagine going to Brooklyn today and asking a 12-year-old where milk comes from.
Well, these autistic children would know.
Well, everybody should know. And why is it that they do not? This country's strength and power and resources was based on agriculture. Mm-hmm. To walk away from that, where we're now giving all of that to Teamsters and the Arabs in a just-in-time dispensary of vital life force, is crazy. And answer is that rather than privatizing water, food should be taken off the monetary grid. And in fact, we're now proving that children are better farmers than adults, and they can stay on task more, and they have a different kind of relationship to what they're doing and how they serve a parent.
So let me ask this question. I know already that you believe that children should be the primary objective in this. What you're essentially saying is, I'll wait till the commercial is over.
Yeah, let's do that, guys. Nick, hold that question. When we come back on the other side of this break, we'll talk about autism, the university, the long-term solution, children, and we actually may have found a real great place for them to be productive and happy. We'll be right back. Class, I'd like to share this with you. Here in the Ozark Mountains, there is a college called College of the Ozarks. It is the hardest college to get into in the entire country. The rejection rate is about 90%. I think about 25% of those who actually get into the college survive 4 years. It's also known as Hard Work University. And in this college, every student works a minimum of 15 hours a week on campus doing things like food service, you know all about that, the library. They have a farm. They have a dairy there. They produce their own milk. They produce their own beef. They produce a lot of their own food. They build their own buildings. They have commercial building. Some of the students who are interested in building operate heavy equipment like backhoes and sky lifts, and they put the roofing on brand new buildings. The students are involved in the construction of the buildings, the grounds, the maintenance, every aspect of the computer science. They're involved in the maintenance and the infrastructure. They're involved in everything of this in this college. And as I think about how hard these young people work, I think about how productive they're going to become and how so many companies want to hire these people. I'm looking at the extrapolation of Nick's idea and the how productive these autistic children could become and how happy they could become doing things in society that we probably think they can't do, but they can. They can. Nick, you had a thought, and you were going to express it just before the break.
Yeah, so this was excuse me, based on what Rick was saying. So we could create a farm environment where children can learn what we should have remembered was really important to us, being caretakers of the land, how to be productive in life, not just get a 9-to-5 job on Wall Street. It's
called self-survival and your personal relationship to yourself, where you feel secure that you have everything that you need in your environment, and then the paradigm shift is things that you want, which is different than things that you need. And that's why getting children to be exposed to this, some won't want to do farming. They just don't like the tractor or the smell of grease or whatever. But to have that exposure, like this College of the Ozarks, I was actually near it when I was in Chattanooga. I got to drive through that campus. It was very kind of cool. And there are the possibilities for educational reform are just exciting now. As the thing I want to spend next hour on is what is the distinctional difference between autism and dyslexia, and where the environment and pollution of the environment may be influencing larger production of one kinds of humans to over others. I have a concern there.
Okay. I do too. And, you know, gentlemen, as I look at some of the challenges that we have in our lives, Rick, you've talked about some of the challenges that you've had in your life, and I've mentioned some that I've had. You know, we faced them, and I honestly believe we came out better as a result of them.
Here you are, possibly changing world thought on educational reform right here, right now. That, by the way, is a Chattanooga logo. Right here, right now, dealing with local production of food.
Okay. We're going to come back on the other side of the top of the hour news and advertisements. Nick Testaccio is going to be with us. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us. We're going to talk about autism, the future, Nick's great, fabulous idea, Rick's additions to it, and dyslexia, autism, the pollution, the interaction, and what we're going to do about it. We'll be right back. This is USAPrepares.com. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked. This is hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com. And I'm really excited. I really am excited. I believe that that USAPrepares.com instructor, Nick Testaccio, has a really interesting, intriguing, and viable solution to help autistic children become productive, happy members of society. And he and Dr. Richard Allen Miller and I are talking about it right now. And class, seriously, if you have someone who is autistic in your circle of friends or in your family, I suggest that you download the podcast for hour number 1 of this broadcast. You can go to usaprepares.com, usaprepares.com, and click on Listen to Vincent. And that will take you to a page where you can download for free any of our broadcasts, but specifically the one I'm talking about is today, autism. We've been talking for the first hour, and we'll continue the second hour, about challenges, learning disabilities, autism. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us, and he shared some of his educational challenges. I shared some of mine. Nick has an absolutely brilliant idea, a farm where autistic children can get out of the warehouse element and learn about what really happens in the world. And I want to share this with you. Just before the broadcast, I connect at exactly 9 o'clock. I have an atomic clock in the studio. I connect with Genesis. And you know I live on a farm, and I'm kind of isolated from some of society. And I was talking to our producer, Alex, and he asked me what I'm going to do on Monday. Now, to me, Monday is another farm day. But for a lot of people, it's a national holiday, Memorial Day. And I thought, oh no, what have I done? Because I might interfere by broadcasting live on Monday. I might be interfering with Dave, our Monday, Wednesday, and Friday producer's plans to be with his family. And that's because I live on a farm. So me living on a farm is different from living in a city. So if we can share with these autistic children what farming is like and where milk comes from, as Dr. Richard Allen Miller said, and the streams and the water and the ground and the planting, that would be an experience that might change their lives for the better forever. Gentlemen, what do you think? Nick, your thoughts?
Absolutely. This is something that I've been thinking about, and the idea of most of it comes from listening to Dr. Miller and his thoughts on what's going on. Mm-hmm. From my standpoint, as I said before, it's looking around me, looking at the economic conditions, being in New York City every day, looking at the environment that is developing around there, and I can tell you it's not going to be a healthy environment in a few years. I don't see any of the big cities making a huge recovery where children are going to be safe, they're going to be taught well, and having really, really productive lives. Something where they can say, "Hey, I did this. Mm-hmm. This is something that made me happy. This is something that I can look at and be proud of," rather than the 9-to-5 job where you go in and you produce numbers and really nothing is being done. But before Dr. Miller talks about some of the things he wants to speak of, I'd like to talk a little bit about my education when I was young, mm-hmm. because I was a lousy student through the 7th grade. Lousy. I got to the 8th grade, and I had a teacher, Sister Mary Pierre, and she understood that I needed to be challenged. She asked questions that were nowhere near the curriculum, and I could answer them. It was stuff that, we had really no business knowing, but I understood them. I understood the questions, and I understood where she was going with them. So it made me think, and I went from being a lousy student to top of the class in a year's time. And she insisted that I take an exam for a special technical school. It was a 6-hour exam. You had to have a minimum of 140 IQ to get into the school, and it was very daunting. But it was geared towards people who eventually might become engineers, and they taught you all the basics of design concept, actual design, building the products from scratch. Mm-hmm. Scratch. So the point of our education system now is to make children memorize things, mm-hmm. which to me is completely counterproductive. They need to learn how to think, how to reason through things. Even at an early age, as Rick has said, these kids are far more productive than we allow them to be.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I liked shop when I was in high school. I understand that they're actually eliminating shop in many of the high schools in California now. And it's like giving you basic life skills in a variety of areas so that you're not so dependent in being compartmentalized, into little boxes where you are a jack of all trades. You can do a lot of different things and have a broader range of enjoyment.
Rick, what you said is absolutely right. In Virginia, I was involved in designing networks for schools, and one of the schools that I designed networks for was a trade school, and they taught shop, electricity, building wiring, plumbing, masonry, framing, roofing. They taught all of those, auto mechanics, body shop work. They taught all of those things, and they pulled the plug on them. They did. They pulled the plug on them. And so now, I looked at them. I said, well, "So who's going to do the framing, the roofing, the masonry? Where are we going with this? What are we thinking?" And who does that? The school boards. The school boards make those decisions. We have lost our minds, and not everybody. As Nick, as you were saying, not everybody should be involved in paper pushing and keyboard depressing. They should be doing some things that we need as society.
Well, and dyslexia is a possible reflection of how much we are on sensory motor overload with computers, cell phones, and the constant looking down at your hands with your thumbs moving rapidly in texting. Our lifestyle has moved us to a place where certain of these kinds of what we call dysfunction, like dyslexia, is in fact the brain shutting down, wanting to escape into something more. And there are many different kinds of people out there, and they all approach reality differently. And that's the gift, not the limitations. I don't want all my girlfriends to have blonde hair or be skinny. We have been culturally programmed on what we think is good and loving and acceptable, and what is dysfunctional, aberrant, and not part of society. And I'm going to question all of that, and I'm going to suggest that it's time for a serious review of education and educational reform. And where we start is in the very basic trenches with 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds. The breakup of the nuclear family is having repercussions in the schools, where the children at in first grade are entering mentally disturbed because of their parents, having nothing to do with the child itself. The child will come in wanting attention because his father didn't come home. Why? Who knows? He might have to work, or it's alcohol, whatever. The thing is, the child comes to school sick because of that. And so it's time for a type of educational reform that includes the crib.
Interesting, Rick. You know, when you talk about dyslexia, we're talking about people who have problems learning in school. It can lead to behavior problems, loss of self-esteem, you know, and reading,
that's
which
what it's
ultimately
all about, right there, loss of self-esteem. That's why if you give a child, you give them permission to do this. Watch what happens next. It's unbelievable. I did that up on top of a mountain when I was in Chattanooga. I sat down. Oh, this is an interesting story. It actually happened. I sat down on this log and just was quiet. And the next thing I know, there's a ring of about 30 children around me. And 2 of them were right up next to me. And so I stood up, looked down at where I was sitting, and said, "Oh, look at this mushroom right here. This is not a reishi, but it's a turkey tail. It's part of the Ganoderma family." And then I opened the log up to show how the mycelium was growing down into the log. And 3 of the children reached into their backpacks and pulled out microscopes. It was so cool, I couldn't believe it. I actually saw that happen. They got it on film too. The kids had their own microscopes and wanted to look at it.
Rick, what we're talking about is a revolution in education. Instead of reading class and regurgitating the answers, we're talking about thinking, learning how to think again. And Nick Testacio's got a great plan. We'll be right back. This is USAPrepares.com. I'm really excited. I think this is the neatest thing. Nick, you've got a really great start. Nick, are we going to be able to see this through to fruition?
I certainly hope so. I think I may use this program to sell it to some of the people I know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Nick. I think, as we were rejoining the broadcast just a few seconds ago, coming through the rejoiner with our announcer, I was grinning from ear to ear thinking, this is the coolest thing. And it reminded me of a discussion that I had with Alex Jones, producer, yesterday afternoon when he told me that we're going to Knoxville, Tennessee. A station there is picking us up on Monday. And I said to him, you know what? I think you and I, they're not jobs, but if they were jobs that we had, we would have the coolest jobs on the planet, because we get to have a lot of fun. We're passionate about what we do, and we love it, and we go to work each day smiling, happy to do it. And what we're talking about right here, right now, the Chattanooga term that Rick talked about right here, right now, is there's a solution, and it's doable. It is absolutely doable, and we don't have to ask anybody for permission to do it. We can do it. We can do it, and that's what, you know, we're a bunch of dyslexic guys and gals learning disabilities, and here we are taking on the system.
Well, I wouldn't say we're taking on the system. The system's falling apart at the seams.
And we're still standing.
The thing that we're doing now in terms of what it's going to be requiring is a shift in paradigms on why and what we do and why we do it. And food, as we have it today, is processed and basically toxic. In fact, processed meats, start there. That's a good place with all the chemicals and all the weird things that you will find in sausage. That was Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. I mean, that's even back then in the 30s, they knew about the problems with your sources of food and how they're manufactured, and the idea of economy of scale and trying to make things cheaper and more to feed larger groups. The whole concept of capitalism may not be appropriate for food.
Nick, what do you think?
I think that's, going back to the economic conditions, this country survived for 130 years without people having a lot of money. They produced things. They brought the goods to market. They bartered. They traded, whatever the case was. And we did just fine. We were very healthy and happy people, and we were we became the most productive nation in the world. I think that what Dr. Miller said is absolutely spot on.
Yeah,
I think that there's other things that need to be said. For example, what we are currently doing to our environment and how that is going to be left as a legacy for our children. And to start the children with basics in permaculture and sustainability, that concept right out of the gate at 2 years old, I think is what your camp might be about too. Not necessarily show another alternative to urban living. And in fact, I'm going to guess that urban living is changing, is going to be the thing that really changes, where it comes down to, like they're doing in L.A. with gangsta urban farming, a part of the infrastructure for the local food, rather than having to depend on what Mexico or Guatemala might decide they want to do with the Arabs, figuring out how much it's going to cost blended. That all has got to change. It's not about changing our oil to alcohol or some other form. It's about a mentat of what we do with our food and where it comes from.
Nick Testaccio, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, Vin Finelli, USAPrepares.com. Talking about autism, we're talking about learning disabilities, we're turning them around, and we want to help those who have those disabilities become productive members of society. We'll be right back. Class, I got a short announcement. On next Friday, not this Friday, Friday the 31st, I'll be broadcasting live from the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association Conference 2013 in St. Charles, Missouri. And I'm going to be broadcasting with a fellow broadcaster, Sam Bushman. And he and I are going to be broadcasting live for 4 hours from the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association 2013 conference. Sheriff Richard Mack will be there. A whole bunch of sheriffs are going to be there. We're going to be talking about the Constitution why it's important, what we need to do right here, right now, as Dr. Richard Allen Miller has the term, right here, right now. And I'd like to share with you how you can get in touch with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. It's richardallenmiller.com, richardallenmiller.com, Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. And there's a link on the website. And Nick Testaccio, his link is on the website, where the instructors are under financial. Page 1 at the bottom of the page where all the instructors are. And restoretherepublic.org. Restoretherepublic.org is his website.
Can I just add something to that, Vinny?
Sure.
We have a forum, and in the forum we added a topic called Farm Project. So for anyone who wants to add, whatever ideas they have to this, they can go to my website, and they can look into the forum for Farm Project.
Okay, I just went there, and I see it. What I'll do, I will also put a link to the Farm Project on page 1 of usaprepares.com. During the next break, I'll put that on so that if you need additional pointers to get to the website in the Farm Project, you can join. Nick, my question for you is, how would you like people to contact you if they have thoughts, suggestions, if they're interested in assisting? What do you want them to do? Do you want them to contact you or through the website? What do you want to do?
Well, they can go to the website, or I can give you my email address, and they could send me an email. Hopefully,
okay, let's do that.
All right.
Let's do that.
It's nckTst@yahoo.com.
That's
nckTst@yahoo.com.
There you have it. So if you're interested in contacting Nick Testaccio, sharing your thoughts with him, I think that'd be great. So, Rick, do you think it's possible to pull this off?
Oh, well, yeah. I would be remiss if my team has reminded me to mention I have a brand new book out in this very area called The Encyclopedia of Alternative Agriculture for Urban and Semi-Rural Communities, Volume 1 of 9 volumes. And it's a big, thick book. And this is what I've been doing for the last 35 years. When I left the military, I went out and began farming. And so what I'm doing, slightly different and very exactly like Nick, is I call it the Urban Farm Project of North America. And urban is spelled with an H-E-R-B, urban farm. When you deal with non-storable commodities, you are a limited production, niche marketing, cottage industries, and the ability to add value to products prior to leaving the farm. That is the small farm as we're going to understand it in the future. Corporate farming is not the same as small farming. It is a completely different animal with a different intentionality. And with that said, our future is in the small farm. And to have demonstration farms where kids could be like little woofers, moving from one farm to another to get a sense of community and environment and habitat, to be able to go to Florida or go up into upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region to see the difference in what a small farm would be. Up in the Finger Lakes, I've got people that are doing organic grapes, big vineyards of organic grapes all through the Finger Lake region. What an incredibly interesting journey for a child to witness that and then go down into Florida and watch the saw palmetto berry being harvested for what we would call your urban pharmacy. We're medicines rather than required to go to a pharmaceutical house. You know, valerian root, for example, valerian sulfate is Valium and grows as a root. And so there's all kinds of possibilities out there in terms of how to restructure local and rural communities, semi-rural communities.
You know, it sounds
That's
to me...
what I'm doing right now, networking from small farms and bunkers for congressmen and the military. And I am seeing that there's habitat. That's why Gurdjieff said to eat your environment. There's a reason that you're living in a given area and you climatize, just like plants do, to the kinds of diet that are most appropriate from that universe. And it certainly has nothing to do with Mexico, Guatemala, or even down further. It's crazy how we're living now.
Rick, you were talking about dyslexia, we're talking about IQ, and we're talking about toxins. And since there are so many toxins in the environment, since we're surrounded, since we are getting sicker, since we are becoming more obese, since we are becoming more healthy, isn't one of the primary answers to grow our own food and teach people how to do it and dovetail that with...
There's a serious problem with GMOs. I have a new article out in Nexus Magazine called The New Directions in Mind Control. And the one I'm focused on in that article is called T. gundi, a bacteria you got from cats that is basically inert in humans, but when activated by a specific gene in wheat, becomes what is affectionately now known as the little mind benders. And guess who the smoking gun is for underwriting those studies?
Why don't you help us?
Monsanto, top of the list, is a weapons company, and it's time we realize that there is a war going on, and that basically these chemicals that are escaping into our universe are probably done with intent to create a different kind of race of humans. And so we are seeing dyslexia and autism occurring more frequently in percentages with our children, and some of them are not gifts like normal autism and dyslexia might otherwise infer. There's something else going on. I have to question everything. And so I'm suggesting it's time for a lifestyle change.
Well, all of us, USAprepares.com, are in agreement. I'm really excited about this project. I'd like to do whatever I can at my end of the microphone.
Possibilities it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity, and I'm thankful to be even possibly part of participating. You know, it's wonderful. It's a great concept, absolutely part of my mission statement. Educational reform, top of the list. We start with our children.
Well, you can bet, Rick, that I'll be calling on you for a lot of advice in the future.
Well, my pleasure to be working with you too, Nick, truly.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, the post is on page 1, USAprepares.com. So it says on page 1, Nick Testaccio, Autism Farm Project. And if you'd like to click on it, it'll take you right to his page, and you can join in and help. I think, Nick, we're talking about autism. We're talking about dyslexia. But I think it's bigger than that. I think this could be the model for a lot of people to become more involved with where food comes from, producing good quality food locally in their own communities. And I don't see how anyone can say this is a bad idea. I don't see how anybody could say this should not go forward post haste.
Well, you're absolutely... I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead. You're absolutely right. This is how it works. Exactly so.
Right. Mm-hmm. And what I wanted to add to this, you asked me if I thought this could go to fruition, and I certainly hope so. I'm going to work towards it. But I want to point out that it's not about me, you, or Dr. Miller. I mean, there might be people out there like myself who were looking to contribute to society, and they said they didn't know what to do, where to grab onto, which direction to take. And they might look at this and say, hey, this is a terrific idea. Maybe I can start something in the area I'm in. Or maybe there's somebody out there who's got 100 acres of land that's sitting around and he's not really doing anything with it. And he might say to himself, he or she, let me get involved. I'm not really adding anything to society right now. And I agree with these people. We need to have a shift in the paradigm of how we live our lives.
Nick, Rick, in class, I've said this a number of times, maybe every 10 days or so. I'll say, for those of you new to the class, meaning usapreparedness.com, there are over 150 of us here, experts in various areas. All of us are innovators. We are dentists, medical doctors, engineers, surgeons, CEOs, broadcasters, researchers, physicists, farmers, and inventors. And we're students rising to become instructors. That's who we are. And none of us is really capable of holding down a job because we're independent thinkers. So if you want to follow this model in your area, that's what we try to teach right here at usapreparedness.com. Yes, you can do it. We'll be right back. We're talking with Nick Testaccio and Dr. Richard Allen Miller, talking about learning disabilities. We're talking about autism. And Nick Testaccio, an alternative to the farm. You know, we've been discussing the potential for a farm to help autistic children. Now, can you tell us what the alternative to that is? Now, if we don't build a farm, what's happening right now what's the current path for autistic children? Here, is it medication to keep them calm, to keep them quiet, to keep them semi-comatose, to warehouse them? What is the current plan, the alternative that we're using now to your plan?
Well, right now I can tell you that to a certain extent in the New York City school system, I noticed since my cousin teaches there, is that they try and get them through a schooling enterprise where they learn enough to get out into society, and they work with small companies who are willing to help these children who see that they have certainly some productivity in them. Now, beyond that, I can also tell you that not every state does this. You know, a lot of children are just left to the wayside. They have to make it through whatever way they can. So if there's another alternative, I certainly don't know about it. Maybe Dr. Miller does.
Well, they have in my state here a thing called special ed, and the teachers are trained to deal with children that are somehow not normal. I do that with gifted children with Waldorf. I mean, I have a kid, he's 12 years old, doing his doctorate in chemistry at Cornell. And how I ended up mentoring him was that I discussed writing a comic book with him. Kid got it. He loved the idea. That's where we are at this moment. Stay tuned. We might come up with some weird new sci-fi movie based on his doctoral thesis. But what I'm trying to suggest is that people don't have a clue to the fact that when someone is different, that does not necessarily make them handicapped. And to classify that thinness, like the way we do with advertising and radio, has so skewed our environment and belief systems and values that, in my mind, we're lost. And we're lost, and we have no idea where the center is. And children are born with it. They already know what they want to be and how. It's just what happens is we force them into behaviors that are counterproductive productive, and now we have what we have in our society with all the deadly sins of greed and jealousy and rage. It's just crazy. It's time for a lifestyle change. And I would begin with educational reform and to have these little farms or places or mini vacations, a place where the kid gets a sense of something alternative that could be available to him. Not all of them are going to take to it, but watch what happens next. I had a friend told me about her 60s, in the 1960s, living on a kibbutz, and how happy she was to be part of a community. That tribal concept, there's some key words here of new social anthropology that we're now understanding is essential for us, let's say, integrating better with our universe. You know, the Aborigines, the Hopi, some of the others that we call indigenous, they have a childlike approach to things, and there's something to be learned here.
Rick and Nick, as I listen to this, I'm thinking about, us as third graders and fourth graders, and we were all problems for the educational system, and here we are. We're working on changing it for the better. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, Nick Testaccio, link on the website to each of these gentlemen. Page 1, usapreparedness.com. Class, if you have an autistic person in your life, I suggest that you download the podcast. Hour number 1, hour number 2, absolutely free, right here on GCN. Just go to usapreparedness.com, listen to Vincent, click on Listen to Vincent, GCN, and it'll take you right to the podcast. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.